What's up, guys? It's Justin from Elite Man Magazine, and in today's video I want to talk about understanding your mental health problems and whether they come from a nutritional problem or an emotional problem. Now, most people think that their mental health is solely, well, you have people that fall into different camps, but most people say that their mental health problems, their anxiety issues, their depression issues, whether they have bipolar or schizophrenia or whatever else condition out there, they will think that those have come from a traumatic experience. They'll come from years of conditioning. They'll come from things not going their way in life. They'll come from a breakup. They'll come from whatever emotional stress or trauma out there that has happened in their lives, whether acutely or long term. They'll think that the sole source of their problems, their current emotional problems, come from whatever incident, accident, experience that they had in their life. And many times it's actually true that these things do arise and stem from the experiences that they've had. That is certainly the case many, many times. However, there is also a large amount of people, however, that have these emotional problems, that have mental health problems because of an actual nutritional problem, a nutritional imbalance or deficiency in one of the many nutrients out there, whether that be mineral, vitamin, potentially herbs, or just substances that the body needs, and the brain especially needs, to perform at its very best. Now, you need to consider all options, and there's other things as well that will lead people into having mental health problems. But to just think of one thing or one area and zoom into that, and that's your entire focus for why you have mental health problems, is really doing yourself a disservice and not looking at the entire picture of what is out there. So it's definitely a great thing to always work on the things that you can control in your life, the experiences, the emotional problems, the past events that have contributed to your current depression or anxiety, or that is contributing right now to your emotional woes, and fix those things. You got to correct those things. Like if you had different traumas from the past, whether something crazy happened to you or whether something less extreme, you got to actually resolve those things. You got to look at those things. You got to take them head on, and you got to get over them. And there's many ways to do that, by the way. There's many different practices and modalities to get past those types of things. And you do absolutely have to do that. Therapist comes to mind for sure. Good talk therapy session over the course of time can certainly address many of those things. NLP comes to mind as well. Hypnosis comes to mind as well. What is it called? Tapping, the emotional freedom technique, tapping, and those types of things of, opening up the meridians throughout the body and getting past those emotional traumas that can kind of hold themselves as stuck energy throughout your system. And there's many different meridians. You can look up tapping, EFT, I think it's called, emotional freedom tapping. But I mean, those are just a couple modalities, and there's many, many others out there that can help you release some of those things that you've been stuck and holding on to for so long, that are then causing the subconscious programming and the messing up of your ability to actually have a normal life and to have normal emotions without having these crazy exaggerated feelings about certain things and certain triggers that'll make you feel that way, or just always having this sort of underlying feeling of depression or this underlying constant feeling of worrying or stressing. These things over time, 100%, your subconscious mind records everything in your entire life and everything that's happened and everything that is happening right now. Those things are all very, very true, and you want to address those. And I talk about it, by the way, if you can look over my shoulder in Elite Mind. I talk about all of these things and these strategies for how to overcome these types of problems and the problems that have led you to feel a certain way. And many, many times it is emotional, but also a good amount of times it's nutritional, and you got to address the nutritional side as well. You got to think about things like magnesium, where 80% of the American population is deficient in this one mineral. Magnesium citrate or glycinate, one of the best sources of magnesium that you can take in supplement form. And taking 200 to 400 milligrams of magnesium every day can do incredible things. It can balance out those neurotransmitters. It can correct the deficiencies in that magnesium, which is so important for that brain to function optimally and give you more, say, serotonin, or balance out the dopamine in your brain. If you have a nutritional imbalance, you're lacking, say, magnesium, the brain is not going to be able to function properly and produce those neurochemicals in your brain that will actually make you feel good and will calm you down, so you're not overly stressed or anxious all the time, or you're not dwelling about the past that something happened many years ago. All of a sudden you feel depressed about it inside because the neurotransmitters aren't firing and operating correctly. And as much as you may have gotten past that and you've done all the work, the NLP, the tapping, for instance, or hypnosis, whatever else you do to get past that actual trauma, and you can very well do that. If the nutrition is not proper in the brain, you're still going to be feeling like shit. You're still going to have these types of negative symptoms and emotions because it's not getting the nutrients that it needs to actually function at its best. It's like trying to drive a car without actually putting the right gas in, or having really shitty oil that you never changed before, and thinking that it's going to run like a finely tuned machine. It's not. It's going to break down. It's going to run crappy. It's going to be bogged down all the time. That's you are that machine. You are that car. And yes, you want to address everything else 100%. You got to get those things down for sure, but you also cannot overlook the nutritional side of things, and that's magnesium. Zinc is another big one as well as far as minerals go. It's also things just like the basics, vitamin C, the vitamin D, which of course in the winter time seasons that's why they have seasonal depression a lot of times, because these nutrients are not, you get the vitamin D from absorbing it through the sun. It goes right through your skin and you absorb it. But in the wintertime, especially in New England where I'm from, there's not enough sun, and a lot of people become deficient in vitamin D because they're not supplementing with it, and they're not getting obviously the absorption of sun, which produces that vitamin D in the body. So focusing on the little things like that, even so, you get the vitamin Ds, the vitamin Cs of the world, the zinc, the magnesium, selenium, etc. Across the board, you want to make sure you have all the bases covered. And then you look at things like, say, turmeric, or turmeric as some people like to call it. I like to say turmeric, which I think is the right way to say it, but not a lot of people say it. But anyways, you look at things like turmeric and lowering the overall inflammation in your body. Having a supplement like turmeric every single day lowers the entire systemic inflammatory load in your body. And so we know now, looking through many studies and research papers over the years, that inflammation is a key contributor to depression and even anxious problems, anxiety problems in the brain. The brain cannot operate or function properly when there's too much inflammation. When we have too much inflammation going on systemically from, say, the foods that we eat, which aren't the greatest foods, or the alcohol that we drink on the weekends, or say the air that we breathe is not the best air, or say literally the antibiotics that we take, all these things, these toxins and things that we breathe in, and things that we eat and consume, and things that we drink, all of these things can contribute to the overall inflammatory load in the body. And if it's too high, you generally have some type of inflammation in the brain. And when you have inflammation in the brain, again, it's not going to be able to function properly, and on top of that, you're going to have these problems with neurotransmitters. And when you have a neurotransmitter problem, you oftentimes have a mental health problem. You have a depression problem, or an anxious problem, or a panic attack problem, or in extreme cases, when this has gone on for too long, you develop things like bipolar or schizophrenia, etc. So you got to take care of the inflammatory load, and taking something like turmeric every single day is a huge way, a very, very important way to do it. There's also other herbs as well. Turmeric's one of my favorites, though, as far as inflammation goes. Ginger comes to mind as well, and also the curcumin, which is in turmeric, but can be extracted and taken independently almost as the turmeric. That's another great one for inflammation. Ginger, as I mentioned, is another good one for inflammation. I'm not huge on fish oil, but I am pretty big on omega-3s coming from non-fish sources like algae. It's a great one. So you can get that one. It's not as effective, in my opinion, as lowering inflammation as the turmeric is, but it is a good one as well. And then you also look at things like dropping down the viral load. There's a lot of studies as well which talk about the effects of having unchecked viruses in the body. And Anthony William, a good friend of mine now, is huge on the whole viral thing. You can look up our past videos that we did, had him on the podcast as well. Great guy, incredible guy, has so much knowledge. But one of the big things he talks about is the viruses that we have: shingles, herpes viruses, all the varieties of both of those, Epstein-Barr, all these viruses and the viral load that we have in our bodies can cause all sorts of problems, can cause a cascade of different issues going on. But one of the big things that they can actually be a huge factor in driving is mental health. A lot of these depression, anxiety problems, etc., can arise from these viruses going unchecked, untreated for so long that they sort of get out of control, and they release their own little neurotoxins and viral toxins, which are actually damaging to the brain, damaging to the nervous system, and damaging to the ability for your brain to function properly and for it to produce these neurotransmitters, and again, for you to actually be happy as a result of a properly functioning brain. So the best way to, the best, I guess, defense against a viral load and to actually lower the viral load is to then take things that can drop that viral load and actually attack it so it doesn't spread and doesn't get worse and doesn't continue to cause the damaging effects that it causes. And there's a number of different ways to do that. Zinc is actually a huge part of that as well. Having more zinc in your life is a great thing for fighting off the viral loads and lowering it in your body. B12 is another great supplement as well for, and most people, by the way, are deficient in B12 as well, but taking a good amount of B12 can lower that viral load. Cat's claw is a great herb for lowering viral load. Lemon balm is a great herb as well for lowering that viral load. The ashwagandha is great for balancing neurotransmitters, also can help with lowering the viral load. Basically, all of these incredible herbs that can actually attack this viral load and lower it is going to do you a huge, and vitamin C as well, like boosting your immune system, can help you fight off that viral load as well. So doing all of these things and covering all the nutritional bases can definitely help. Another thing I want to mention too, which many people have no idea about when it comes to depression and mental health, anxiety, etc., is the heavy metals that you have throughout your body. Just like the toxins that you have, just like the pesticides that get, put in over the years, and the chemicals that you consume from the food, the water that you drink, and even just the alcohol liquids that you drink, and also from the air that you breathe. Over time, you get heavy metals into your system, and over time, a lot of those heavy metals, especially mercury and aluminum, go to the brain, and they lead to breakdowns of the neurons. They actually kill off neurons over the time, and they also, while they're doing that, will clearly mess with the function of the brain, the blood flow in the brain, the circuits in the brain, and also, of course, the neurotransmitter activity in the brain and the function of the neurotransmitters and the production of the neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine, norepinephrine, etc. All these things get out of whack when you have pockets of heavy metals in your brain. It's like they're trying to run the electricity, trying to do exactly what they're trying to do, but they're bumping into these heavy metals that are actually in the brain, and it messes up their function entirely. Actually, a lot of the causes of schizophrenia, bipolar, etc., some of the extreme mental health ones, are almost entirely, or mostly I should say, because of the severe amount and the location of these heavy metals in the brain. And when you can pull those things out of the brain, oftentimes you're able to reverse a lot of the symptoms of some of these very severe and what most people would describe as often irreversible conditions. But when you can pull heavy metals out of the system, out of that brain, you're actually able to reverse the symptoms of whatever condition you're having. And heavy metals are a cause of so many different things: Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, etc. You can just go right down the line of any sort of brain condition. Heavy metals are a huge part of that condition. So lowering that as well by taking the heavy metal detox that he has. Wild blueberries are in there, spirulina, cilantro is an incredible one, goes in and grabs the heavy metals from deep pockets of tissue that otherwise cannot be reached. The dulse is a one, Atlantic dulse is a good part of that. Barley grass juice is a part of that as well. And I might be missing one, but I think I named all of them. The wild blueberries are the biggest ones, though. They do so many great things for the brain. They actually build more neural tissue as well and do incredible things. But the point of this entire video is to understand that there are multiple facets to go into mental health, multiple facets that go into depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar. There's a whole lot of things in there. And just looking at one part of that is a horrible idea, because you're blind to the other part of it. And the same thing as this goes, you can't just look at, and that's oftentimes actually what the mainstream medicine will kind of tell you, is look at, take pharmaceutical drugs. That's actually the nutritional side of things. Although not healthy for you, that's what they're doing. They're doing the exact opposite of what I'm talking about in this video. And they're saying basically just take all these drugs and, hopefully you'll feel better. Never works, or rarely ever works. what they need to do is actually go to the opposite side and get to the trauma and do all these types of modalities that can help heal that stuff, and then go, well, they're not even doing the nutrition thing right, but then incorporate the two together, and then you'll see positive results. But if you just look at one area, you're really doing yourself a disservice and missing out on the entire picture. My point is, and my take on everything, it always is look at the entire picture, figure out the easiest way to correct these imbalances, and then once you get them fixed, you can heal yourself of anything. You can heal yourself literally of any condition. This isn't just mental health, by the way. This is anything, any type of chronic disease or problem that you got going on in your life. You got to look at the bigger picture and then focus on attacking it from different angles and getting all those things lined up. Once you do that, you're able to overcome anything that comes your way. So if you enjoyed this video, let me know below. Leave a like, comment below. Also, subscribe on YouTube, hit the notification bell to get notified the instant we release a new video, and follow me on Instagram at Justin Stenstrom, and on Parler at Justin Stenstrom as well for uncensored content. I'm loving Parler these days. It's really cool. I'm still primarily on Instagram, but I'm loving Parler as well because there's a lot of great things going on there, and I don't get censored on there like I do in other platforms.